Welcome. Hello, everybody. My name is Samia and I'm going to be facilitating the webinar today. So I'm so happy that you could join us today. We're going to talk about quality assurance in education and specifically in early childhood education. Today, our topic is really very complex and very important, and especially in these days of the pandemic, because we are often thinking about reopening childcare programs, looking at health and safety guidelines, looking at standards of how we can meet health requirements. But it's also very important to think about that we still have a commitment to provide quality programs, quality services, quality learning for young children. So even though we are in the midst of this pandemic, we cannot forget about quality. And I hope that you were with us in the last couple of webinars last month. And the month before that, we started to look at quality standards and health and safety guidelines for reopening childcare. And then we did a few webinars about that. We had some childcare directors who have already been through reopening childcare programs to come in and share their experiences with us all. We then had 2 weeks ago, we then dove in and looked at how our curriculum could change during the pandemic. And if we were to reopen, how we could use the coronavirus as an emergent curriculum to help develop social and emotional skills for young children, how to develop empathy with children. So today, we're going to take a little bit wider view about what quality looks like overall. We're going to look at what is quality. We're going back to a little bit about definitions and theories of quality. And then we're going to be introducing to you a very special quality rating program, Jodah. So let's get started. We're going to talk about quality. We'll talk about quality approaches. We're going to look at a framework for quality that is applicable at any time for any program, be it in the midst of the pandemic or be it in a normal operation. We're going to look at what are quality rating and improvement systems. And then I'm going to introduce to you what the Jodah standards are. And then we're going to spend a few minutes to talk about how we can apply for accreditation. So let's get started by looking at, going back in history a little bit, looking at the definitions of quality. Plato defined quality as a degree of excellence, quality as beauty, as a value judgment that is expressed by the user. And then Aristotle defined quality as what makes a thing that it is. Quality is an attribute or set of characteristics distinguishing one thing from another. And then we have quality as the property or the ownership or the status that something has. By the 6th century, Lao Tzu, quality is perfection, the ideal without defects, which must constantly thrive. And also, if we were referring back to Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also defined quality as itqan, which means something that is done with wisdom and with a culture of perfection, something that is carried out with order, with discipline, with beauty, well thought out tasks and justice. There are many different approaches to quality, specifically in education. The relative approach, objective approach, pedagogical approach, rights-based approach, outcome-based approach, and middle ground approach. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to review with you a quick overview about what these approaches means. But what I would like you to reflect while I'm briefly explaining them is reflect about your own personal views. Because as a leader, as a teacher, as a policymaker, wherever your role is within the education sector, your approach or your value to, or your perspective towards quality will affect how you carry out your role within that program. It will affect your leadership style. It will affect your teaching. So one thing that often happens sometimes unconsciously is when you start to work with your team. If you're a leader, if you start to recruit teachers, if you're a teacher, then this type of program that you're attracted to usually is a program that shares your vision, shares your values for quality approaches. And I think understanding and agreeing and reflecting on your own quality approach, and then setting that vision, setting that within the mission and vision of your program, of your teaching, of whatever you do with children, is a great place to start. So let's take a look at these different approaches. A relative approach can be defined as when quality reflects certain values and beliefs, needs and agendas, influences and empowerment of various stakeholder groups that have an interest in these services. So, for example, Albert Einstein said, when you're courting a nice girl as an hour seems as a second. And then when you sit on a red hot cinder, that second seems like an hour. So that's relativity. So in other words, there's no particular or set understanding. It's relative to the community. It is relative to the values and belief that's held within that community. It may also reflect the needs of that community. It may reflect certain agendas of stakeholders. I want to give you an example. There's a person called Sakina Yaqub. She won several peace awards and lifetime achievement awards for rebuilding young children's lives after what happened in Afghanistan several years ago. And she was famous for creating a number of quality child programs. And she has a famous saying that she has no walls, only tents, toys, a few toys, and love. So when you think about delivering quality for young children in such an environment, to be able to still provide quality without having met a specific number of blocks or a specific number of how many puzzles you have, or how many learning centers do you have? Do you have a math corner? Do you have a science corner, right? Do you have a sand area? Do you have a blocks area, right? Or a drama area? Rather than thinking of it that way, thinking about reflecting the needs of that community, providing love, attention, and a support to the children, and thinking about reflecting the values of that community, right? So now you can start to understand what the relative approach to quality is. Next one is the objective approach. Researchers from this approach believe that there are a set of a common standard. So there's a set common standards for quality. Some researchers believe that there needs to be an agreement on the indicators that define high quality and low quality. Now this kind of reminds you of the example, the opposite of what I was telling you earlier, where you have a set of indicators, you have a set of requirements. So you need 6 or 7 learning centers. You need this many category of children's books. You need specific kind of equipment in your playground. You need, maybe a checklist of what kind of toys, what kind of resources, what kind of math resources, what kind of science resources. This is a very objective approach to quality. Okay, pedagogical approach means that quality, the people who believe in this approach, they believe that quality is described through the quality of teaching, the quality of pedagogical environment. So they believe that staff have to have a good understanding of child development. They believe that the ability to develop children's perspectives and encouraging them to question, to respond, to elicit ideas. They believe how important leadership is, how important problem solving, and having developmentally appropriate lesson plans. They believe that we need to be using good vocabulary and encouraging language development with children. So you can see that this approach is also very different to the first two, because this approach believes that I may not need to have a set of requirements. I may not have to have this exact list of resources, this exact list of requirements. So it's not really an objective approach, and it's not a relative approach, because I'm not only looking at what that specific program needs, what that community or family of children need, but I have a very strong belief that my teaching strategies have to be top-notch. I have to have the best teachers. My curriculum needs to be developmentally appropriate, but then the types of equipment or the types of resources that I have is secondary, is not as important. If you believe in or if you share with the values of this approach. Next one is a rights-based approach. So looking at this picture, I mean, all children, we know that all children have rights, but you could also believe that for quality, you may argue that children not only have a right to education, but a right to safety and a right to protection, but you may also argue that children have a right to quality. So we know that the United Nations Convention of Child Rights, it's a nearly universally adopted convention, and it includes a breadth of articles that cover all areas of child protection and well-being. So we might argue that a human rights approach or a rights approach to quality means that children have a right to choose the activities that are most interesting to them. They have a right to be listened to. They have a right to high quality settings. You could also look at quality in terms of outcomes. So this is it's another approach to quality. So let's see what this one is. Outcomes-based approach can be described as when we identify key developmental outcomes that we want our children to achieve, and then we focus on the practices and experiences that enhance those outcomes. So for example, let's look at our desired results and then what we could do in early childhood to help support the development of that. So let's say if our focus was really that we want to enhance STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematical skills in our future community, in our future citizens, then in early childhood, we all know as early childhood professionals that there's a lot that we can do with early math, science, and learning experiences. if one of our outcomes was to help children develop multi languages, be multilingual, be bilingual, then we know that in early childhood we could expose young children to multiple languages by listening, by reading books, by interacting with them, by committing to that language very, very early on, from birth. So looking at quality in terms of outcomes could also be another approach that we could take. The last one is pretty self-explanatory, the middle ground or the mixed approach, because I'm sure that as early childhood professionals, when you look at all of the approaches that we've covered so far, it's quite challenging to choose a specific school of thought, isn't it? So you'll often think about a combination, of having a common core, a set of standard, but also the importance of making adaptations for the local requirements, for the local culture, for the context where you are, for the community where you serve. So suggesting, a balanced approach between a subjective and objective approach, or one of the others that we discussed. But the reason I wanted to share with you those approaches, it is very important for us all. Like I said, even if, for parents, it's important for you to think about what you think is quality as a parent, as a teacher, and how you want that to reflect within your teaching. Because the closer you are between aligning what you truly believe in and then what you do on a daily basis, the more powerful I believe that you will be. The closer you are to your own values, the closer you are to your own, the ability that you have to be able to express, to find, if you're a parent, to find a childcare that is in alignment with your own beliefs, that will unconsciously, sometimes we don't realize these things, but unconsciously this will really ignite better relationships. It will ignite reduce your anxiety and stress a little bit more, because you feel that you belong. You feel that you are honed in and share that synergy with the rest of the team that is working in partnership with you. So once we talked about quality a little bit, let's talk about why quality is so important, especially in early childhood education. I mean, we know that if we talk about early childhood education, we could argue the importance of early childhood from 3 perspectives. And for the next couple of slides, I recommend to you that you can use some of these arguments, some of these advocacy strategies to talk to when you're talking to people who are not from the early childhood field, when you're talking to parents, and when you're trying to explain to them how important quality is, and especially during the times of the pandemic, when you're trying to explain to people why, even though you have one of the fields that are suffering the most during these times is the field of early childhood education. I mean, if we were, that field of early childhood was perhaps misunderstood and not getting that much importance or support from different stakeholders before, well, still it is still important. And I hope that during the pandemic, that this passion of yours to remain within the field of early childhood education has not changed and has not shifted, because still the most impactful period in a person's life remains to be early childhood education. And you as professionals in early childhood education continue to have the most important role compared to any other professional working with children at any other stage of their development. So if we look at neurologically, we know that neurologists stress the importance of early childhood education by highlighting the effects of deprivation or neglect on a children's brain. So the figure here, the picture here shows a comparison of a brain development between a child that has suffered extreme neglect and a child that has developed normally. And if you've taken child protection classes with us before, then you've probably seen this slide, and you know it very well because we study it in our child protection classes. And you will notice that how important early childhood is to brain development, to the neurological development of young children. Also, looking at the psychological perspective of early childhood, we know the importance of early childhood education from the psychological and developmental perspectives. And there are many major theorists that have talked about this, be it Sigmund Freud, Maria Montessori, Arnold Getzel, John Piaget, Vygotsky, Erik Erikson, or Bandura. And also, if you've attended all of our child development programs, we study all of these in depth as well, and we look at the different approaches. I mean, even these theorists here also have different approaches to quality in early childhood education. If we argue the economic perspective of early childhood education, Heckman has conducted numerous studies in early childhood and has found that when the government invests in early childhood education program, then we have the chance to have the highest return on investment. Some studies argue that if we invest $1 in early childhood programs, then our return on investment is $7 to actually all the way to $13 on ROI, or return on investment. I mean, if you look at this slide in front of you, you can be able to see the period of 0 to 3 is actually has the highest return on to investment in human capital. And also we talk about this slide in some of our advocacy courses where we explain what exactly that means. You know, what is it? Where's the return coming from? Well, the return is coming from reduction in crimes. The returns are coming from reductions for needs for special education services. That ROI is coming from increased ability for children to increase chances for them to complete high school, to get into college, to have a higher income. So we know that people who have had access to high quality early childhood programs, be that at home or in a center, by the way, this doesn't mean that it has to be in a center, but be that at home or whatever environment, that means that most likely these people will grow to have higher incomes, to have better relationships, less divorce rates. So there's just a numerous number of benefits to the society, benefits to the individual, benefits to the whole nation from investing in high quality early childhood programs. Now, next, we talked about the approaches to quality. We talked about why quality was so important in early childhood education. But now let's think about how do I measure quality? What kind of tools, what kind of assessment tools can I use to measure quality in early childhood programs? Well, here are a few things that I recommend teachers, directors, policymakers, researchers can take a look at. So you may be familiar with something called the Environmental Rating Scales, the ERS. The environmental rating scales are a very widely used quality measurement tool. They have different types. So they have something for infants and toddlers. And they have something for preschools. They have also for school-aged children as well. And they also have something specific for family childcare programs. So for programs that provide early childcare in their homes as well. So environmental rating scales, they have about 470 indicators to be checked off during an observation. So there's detailed information that's collected when observing a classroom, and then every one of those indicators then leads to a rating. So that a classroom will get a rating from 1 to 7. So 1 being the lowest quality and 7 being the highest quality. And if you think about the administration or training over to the right, it usually requires from 2 to 3 hours of observation, and the tool requires practical knowledge of early childhood settings. So thinking about this tool, one can reflect on, okay, what kind of approach to quality are they kind of advocating? And I also want to mention that this tool is available in several languages. It's also available in Arabic. The next one that we have is the assessment profile. The assessment profile has 87 criteria assessing the learning environment, scheduling, curriculum, interactions, and individual attention. I'm going to skip over to the next one, the CIS tool, or the ARNET scale of caregiver behavior. The reason I want to skip to this one is this is one that's extremely simple. It has 26 items and it covers positive relationships. It covers punitiveness, or our how we handle, discipline positively, permissiveness, and pro-social interaction. It's a very simple tool. You can see that it only takes about a day of observation and very little coding that's done. And actually, I believe that this tool is so simple, and you can also start to kind of make the connection about what we talked, remember, about the pedagogical approach. When we looked at different approaches of quality, this one is more linked to that one and that approach. And I think that this tool is so simple that parents, teachers, anybody can do it. It's only a few pages long, and it really helps you kind of gauge on the quality of interactions and relationships that are in a classroom. I'm going to jump ahead to the next slide. And when all of these tools, if we were kind of to make a scan of what these tools are actually measuring, what is it that they're measuring? What is it that they're evaluating? What are these tools assessing within a childcare program? Well, if I put all of them together, then I could see that they are measuring emotional climate and interaction. So this means, the developmental appropriateness of rules, conversations about feelings, all of those. They look at also individualized, purposeful, planned instructions. They look at how well the program is interacting with parents. Of course, they look at materials. So especially when you remember when I talked about the first tool, the environmental rating scales, they focus a lot on the materials. So what kind of fine motor, what kind of math, what kind of dramatic, tool materials that you have. And several of the tools, of course, focus on the safety, hygiene, ratios, safety of the equipment, sufficiency of space. Some of them also look at cultural responsiveness. How well are you using the native language development? Also, a lot of them are looking at, the curriculum itself. So are you covering all the different areas? What about the physical arrangement as well? So through, if we're going to talk about the end to that towards the end of this program, as this is just a quick overview, but we are going to be launching more courses to talk about quality dimensions, where we'll kind of dive deeper into these areas. Now, if I looked at all of these areas, I could categorize them in two categories. So I can take all of these areas and put them into two. There's structural features and process features. Structural features of quality means something that is very tangible. So meaning that, teacher qualifications, how much space I have, what's the group sizes, what's the ratio. It's very tangible. And then the process features are something that is more intangible. It measures interactions, family involvement, pedagogy. And if I were to look at all of these and how it affects quality, so within a childcare program, I could, kind of categorize them in two areas. So under structural quality, I'm talking about a classroom ratio, group size, improved environments, and teacher training. These are also all very measurable areas of quality that I can control. And then the process quality is better teacher interactions, your pedagogical approach or your teaching approach, and more collaboration among the teaching staff and among the parents as well. Then we have, of course, once we focus on all of these quality programs, we're then more able to reach those improved outcomes for children. So we're better able to not only to ensure their health and safety, but also the holistic development of the child within all of the areas. And then if we kind of jump to the future, then we know that if we look at the medium and long-term goals, we know that 20 to 40% of the children will have better test scores, 40% less likely to stay back a grade, 31% drop in the need for special education services, 4 times more likely to graduate high school, less likely to live in poverty, less likely to be incarcerated due to crime rates. There are just so many benefits of providing quality in early childhood education. So, okay, so now my focus, let's say if I'm a teacher or a childcare director or an investor in a childcare program or an owner of a program, I want to make sure, let's say your goal was, I'm convinced, I want to make sure that I am providing quality. What can I do? So you have 3 options. There's something called quality awards, quality accreditation programs, and quality rating systems. So I'm going to very quickly explain what's the difference between these 3. So a quality award is something that you get once you've done something for a specific criteria. You've met a certain criteria, and usually it doesn't, it's not an award that exemplifies quality in all areas, but in a particular area. So for example, there might be a quality award for best teacher, or a quality award for best program done for science in early childhood education, right? So it's for a narrow or a specific achievement. Next comes quality accreditation. So quality accreditation means that there's an accreditation body, and they have, laid out very specific indicators, and you will have to meet all of those indicators in order to get accredited. And accreditation usually means either you have it or you don't have it. So it's a very high level of standards. And you wouldn't be celebrated if you were at any of them, you didn't meet all of them. So either you are accredited and you've met all of those standards. But then if you fall short in any of the areas or any of the standards, then you simply don't have an accreditation. And that's what's very different comparing quality accreditation programs to rating systems. Because rating systems celebrate you whatever level you are at. So you may not have reached all of the standards, but you may have, exemplified that you've met 80% or 70% or whatever percentage of standards that you have. And then you are celebrated at every one of those levels. So I'm going to jump ahead here, and what I would like to introduce you all is Jodah. Jodah means quality in Arabic, and it is the first international tiered quality rating system for early childhood programs. It is a US-based nonprofit organization, and we work with partner organizations and to offer this quality rating and improvement system to the Middle East and Africa region. It is also endorsed by a UK awarding body called TQ UK. Jodah is available in several countries, including Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Kuwait. And Jodah standards are, now that I have kind of covered all of the different dimensions, you won't be surprised that Jodah standards covers all of those areas: child learning and development, child protection, health and safety, workforce qualifications and their professional development, citizenship, community relationships and family relationships, indoor-outdoor environment, and also leadership, management, and administration. With Jodah, as I said, you're celebrated at whatever stage of quality that you have. So the certification, we have 5 levels for the certification: Tier 1 all the way to Tier 5. Tier 1 meaning that you're just starting out the Jodah process, and Tier 5 that you're exceeding Jodah standards, or that you're exemplifying a very high quality program. And, it's very important to mention that part of the beauty of the Jodah program is that, let's say if you were met all the standards in a Tier 2 program, then within the Jodah program, it very clearly provides you the technical assistance and the coaching and the feedback and the mentoring to help you to go to the next steps, to help you to understand exactly what you need to do for your program, not generically. So it's for specifically what your program needs, what your program needs for your specific context, for your community, for the families that you're serving, and how you can improve that quality going to the higher tiers. So what's exciting is that you don't need to go through the entire program all at once. Jodah is launching a membership program. So once to learn more about all of these tiers and the qualities, and to have access to all of the resources, you could simply start with a membership. So all programs that want to go through the accreditation process, and we're going to explain that accreditation process in a minute, have to be members. We have different levels for the membership. We have the individuals, we have organizations, and we have something called the Jodah Coach. For the individuals, you're going to get resources, articles, discounts on the Arabian Child online courses, and then you're going to get specific courses also for Jodah, and then you are going to also get access to VIP events. You'll get access to more of conferences and webinars like we're doing now, and you might also get discounts to other related early childhood conferences. And now with all of the pandemic, many conferences around the world are happening virtually as well. So you might see that periodically you're getting offers to and discounts to join in as virtually in conferences that are happening everywhere around the world. And then you'll notice that you also have the option to be placed on the Jodah website. So for the organization, of course, with consent, you'll be able to display and celebrate. So let's say if you got a tier 4, which is absolutely fantastic, and you wanted to celebrate that within the Jodah portal for the public to see. So that's also an option as well. Now I'm going to run through, before I get to your questions in the chat, which I'm going to get to in a moment, we're going to run through the different stages. So this is the final section of today's webinar. So first stage, of course, after you become a member, you're going to start your application. And once you start your application, you start attending trainings. So similar to what we talked about earlier, is that it's very important that you get more in-depth training about all of the quality standards, how you can achieve those. So remember when we talked about the areas of the domains, well, we're going to dive into what the quality means in each of those domains, in each of those areas, and we're going to give you examples of what you can do to meet those qualities. So there's an extensive training that happens in the first stage. And this is, by the way, this training is open for everyone. So you don't need to be a center. I mean, you could be a teacher, an assistant teacher, an administrator, a program administrator. Anybody is welcome to go through the training stage and get access to all of this wonderful training that is in stage 1. Stage 2 is once you feel that you have a good grasp of the quality standards, we then take you to doing a baseline assessment, which is stage 2. Meaning this is a mock assessment or a baseline assessment. This is not going to be reflected in your tier certification, but it's kind of testing the waters. It allows you to get a comprehensive baseline rating for your program. It shows you against all of the quality standards what your level is, what your tier is for every one of the standards. And it helps you to design a roadmap on what you need to develop, what gaps you have, what the areas that you're really strong in, the areas where you need development in. So that's stage 2. And by the way, stage 2 also can be conducted virtually. Stage 3 is something that is really just absolutely fantastic, and it's one of the key factors of the success of the program. Stage 3 is, now that you have your baseline rating, now that you kind of have your roadmap, you know what you need to develop, you know the area where you're strong in, and now I need to work with a coach. So you will be able to select from a group of Jodah coaches. Jodah coaches are, close to you. They're living in an area that is near to you. They understand, and they, you may be able to choose from more than one coach. You then work with this coach to help you bring that quality, develop and implement a quality improvement program, a plan. They provide you coaching, they provide you technical assistance, they will give you feedback. And they might do some additional support visits. They might write things for you. They might help you understand and provide you some more training or support. Jodah coaches are integral to the Jodah Quality Improvement Program. So, and usually the time period that you work with Jodah coaches is completely open and dependent on what you need for your program. Once you're done with that stage, you're then ready to schedule your final verification visit. Now, this is serious. This is not a baseline assessment. This is not a mock visit. this is the final verification visit. It will be done by an independent, it will not be done by Jodah coaches. The Jodah assessor, perhaps the one that conducted the baseline assessment, or perhaps a group of other assessors will observe teaching. They will evaluate indoor, outdoor environments. They will review evidence. They're going to do interviews with staff, with managers, with parents, and sometimes with children as well. And they will produce a quality report. That quality report will indicate the level of quality based on your verification visit. Now, once you've done that stage, you're ready for the accreditation. So you can now submit the final report that you got from the verification visit, and you can request certification. So whether it's tier 1 all the way to tier 5, we encourage all programs to go for the certification to whatever tier that you have, is because you can celebrate that achievement over time. Very seldomly do we have programs that start off at level 5. So we also have options. We know that people are at different stages. So we have options for programs to start from stage 1. And this is recommended for all childcare programs, kindergartens, special education needs centers, and any other center that's serving children under the age of 8. However, if you've been through the Jodah program before and you've got, maybe a tier level 1 or 2 or 3, or you want to kind of strive for a higher tier, or perhaps that you have an accreditation, another accreditation, and which is maybe similar to Jodah, then you may be ready to start at stage 4. You may be ready to schedule a verification visit directly, and to see if you're you may be ready for that level. So you have the option of joining in either as a program that's going through reassessment, or a new or a program that's new to this accreditation, but has a very strong understanding of quality standards and is used to this kind of programs. This is a sample of the certificate, and you will see that there's a tier level indicated. You'll be able to see the issue date and when it expires. It is valid for 3 years, and you do have some requirements of what you need to submit on an annual basis. You also have the option to request a plaque or a physical award that can be mailed to you, and you can hang either indoor, outdoor to celebrate the achievement. I know that you've all been wondering about the costs. So the costs may change post-COVID, but the membership costs, these are to the left of the program, to the left of the screen. We have the individual is $75 per year, and the organization is $250 a year. That will give you access to the members portal, where you have all of the resources and everything. And then for every stage, you can see that it's priced out separately, so you can decide, when you want to kind of start for each stage. So when you start in stage 1, you get access. You have to go for the training. So if you're already a member, then you have about 50% discount on all the training. Then you can choose how many staff members. We recommend for many staff members to go through that training, so you can price it out that way. Then once you're ready for the baseline assessment, you can schedule that, and the coaching costs are determined by Jodah coaches and are specific to that program. Then stage 4, you're scheduling another verification visit, which was similar to the baseline assessment. And then the final stage is the accreditation. So I'm going to leave it on this slide over here, and I'm going to welcome now, if you would like to use the chat, or if you have any questions about the program, I'm more than happy to answer them here. You know, these are just some of the pictures that of programs that have gone through the accreditation, and many of them have got, you know, not all of them started off at the highest level of quality, but the programs, the smiling faces that you see here of our programs that have worked very hard, some for, you know, almost a year, some for less, some for a little bit more, and to be able to reach. And also all of these pictures are for programs that kind of have really gone through and got the highest level of tier level quality, be that either a tier 4 or a tier 5. So if you have any questions about the experience, and I want to thank you for continuing to kind of be with us with these wonderful webinars where we get to see you and meet you virtually. And I want to remind you also that we are continuing to provide you with these informative webinars, and we'll be back next month in September with a new group of webinars. And I hope that, thank you so much. I'm glad that this was helpful today, and I look forward to seeing you in future webinars. Thank you so much.